This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about WandaVision episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall.
I don't understand what's happening. Why it's all falling apart and why I can't fix it.
Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?
What? You're not supposed to talk.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is TV Podcast Industries chatting about WandaVision episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am one of your other hosts, John, and I killed Sparky too.
I was going to say, it kind of feels like a Monday. Or Mondays, right?
Little Office Space gag from the episode. Yeah, I like seeing that. Ooh, I think I've got a case of the Mondays. Yeah, very interesting. Who are you? Who's that third voice that we've just got on board there?
Sorry. Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Chris. Pleasure. In case you have first time joining us midway through a season and very spoilery.
And 553rd episode of the podcast, in case you don't recognize Chris's voice.
I'm the high-pitched Irish guy. The other guy is the low-octave Irish guy, and then we have the high-pitched English guy.
No, Anglo-Irish guy.
That's right.
Sorry, Anglo. Yes, we forgot about that damn citizenship.
Don't worry, guys. Again, we've been going for 6 years, and we constantly get people telling us that we have a UK podcast. So, doesn't really matter, does it?
No, not really.
No.
But welcome back, fellow Defenders. We're here to talk about a pretty interesting episode 7. Lots of interesting stuff happened, lots of reveals in here. 2 more episodes to go, so we're pretty much into the end game, let's say. But there are some interesting reveals to chat about on the podcast. Make sure you've watched the episode, and of course, I'm sure you all know by now, make sure you stay to the end, because we have our first post-credit scene in the Marvel TV show WandaVision this time, and there is some interesting stuff in there that we will be talking about in the episode, so stay after the credits to watch that scene as well.
Yes, stay to the end after the credits of WandaVision, not ours.
Yes.
If you stay to the end of ours, you're just going to hear nothing, because it will end.
You know, that's one of the coolest things that another podcast that I listen to does, podcast about Marvel stuff, a podcast called Welcome to Level 7, which I've been listening to for 6 or 7 years. They always have a post-credit scene where they talk about something different than they talk about in the episode. I think that's really smart. It's like, they'll talk about Star Trek after talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the full episode or something. I think that's a really cool little Marvel tag, isn't it?
That is quite cool, yeah.
Nice idea. Anyway, let's get into talk about this episode. Of course, if you want to share any of your thoughts about any of the episodes of WandaVision or anything else, email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. If you're looking for a place to chat about WandaVision after you've watched the episode, I cannot recommend enough popping over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. We do take a lot of feedback from there, but there is so much chat and theories and discussions going on about WandaVision. It's a great place to go if you want to hear other people's thoughts and share your own about the episodes. I know you guys have hopped in and out of that as well, haven't you?
Oh, yes, but mine was more Drag Race UK themed.
It was, yeah.
Ding dang dong.
Wow. Yes, I pop in. I'm one of those social media lurkers, unless directly tagged. I kind of
That sounds so ominous, Chris.
It does.
Do you have creepy vines in your basement?
But they are just for pure recreational use.
And a large energy bill.
Yes. But no, it's all right. I have a purple glowing book that powers everything too.
Excellent. No electricity bills for you. Good stuff.
No.
On to the episode. The episode was written by Cameron Squires, a staff writer for 8 of the 9 episodes of WandaVision. Also wrote for the animated comedy series Final Space as well. So a bit of a comedy background there for our writer on the episode, Cameron Squires. Episode once again directed by Matt Shakman. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure. From the N64 and Atari controllers to Wii remotes and Uno, the Maximoff household is glitching between times, and after the fright night that was Halloween, Wanda desperately needs some me time. With Agatha helping to look after the twins, and Vision still not returned home, Wanda settles in for a quiet morning of to-camera self-reflection and TV. At the travelling circus on the outskirts of Westview, the new clown Vision and Darcy the escape artist, dare I say it, escape their big top debut to get back to Wanda, but events seem to be preventing them from getting to Vision's home. Meanwhile, after a few hiccups, Monica's plan to get back into the Hex is successful, but as she pushes her way through the energy field, her DNA is altered, giving her new powers. She makes her way to Wanda, and her new powers help combat Wanda's magic as she tries to appeal to her better nature and to stop Wanda's hold over Westview. Luckily, before things can escalate, Agatha steps in to defuse the situation and brings Wanda to her house and the twins. As Wanda regains her composure, things begin to feel odd at Agatha's. Where is Ralph? More importantly, where are the twins? And why does Agatha's basement have an ominous medieval vibe to it? Why? Because it was Agatha all along.
If I was a singer, I would totally sing that theme tune of It Was Agatha All Along. I love it. It feels like something out of Wicked. The stage musical, doesn't it? Really cool. Lots of people very happy about predicting who exactly Agatha or Agnes was in the show. Some interesting predictions that have been thrown out the window by this episode, some that are still on the table for the season. But let's get into our discussion about our top 5 moments from the episode, our top 5 things to discuss. As always, quick note at the beginning about what this episode is based on Modern Family, the most recent comedy, I suppose, that the show's covered so far. Main reason that you know this is because they're talking to camera throughout the show. Everybody sits down for some weird moments in between scenes to discuss it with the cameraman. Really love that moment when Vision is like, why am I talking to you about this? I need to go back to my family. Because there are those moments in these comedy shows. Kind of started out with The Office in the UK, and then obviously taken over to the US with The Office US, where they have these moments of talking to the camera, and it's supposed to feel like a reality show. But if I understand correctly, I had to look this up yesterday. It is a bit of a nod to The Office as well, as I said, the reality idea. If I understand correctly, after about 8 seasons of The Office, it actually turned out they'd never broadcast an episode of the documentary of the show on television. So they had this mechanism where they were talking to camera the whole time, but it was never actually leading to anything, which is such a weird thing. So what we find out in this episode of WandaVision is, while she's talking to camera and explaining everything that's going on, the actual WandaVision show is not broadcasting anymore. Everybody outside can no longer see the show. So it is reflective of exactly all those shows, those reality shows with a camera in the house of people or a camera in the office of people talking about their day-to-day experiences, but not being broadcast to any audience. So I just thought that was a really interesting take from those shows.
I love this. So strangely, okay, don't shoot me, listeners. Don't shoot me. Everyone usually shoots me when I say this. I wasn't the biggest fan of the US Office.
Oh no, that's fine. You're right company here, Chris.
Even the UK Office. It never fully clicked with me.
Now I'll shoot you.
Just checking.
It was ahead of its time, Chris.
It was. And now, I've watched the US Office and the UK Office since, and they've, to a degree, grown on me, and my partner in crime absolutely loves them. She goes on about she watches the US Office at least full start to finish at least once a year, I'd say. Modern Family was a bit more of my... it's a bit more of my steam, if you will. It's my speed. Yeah. It's less realistic. Whereas The Office was kind of off the ball, but also kind of centered a bit more on reality. Modern Family just had a bit more hijinks, if you will.
Absolutely.
One of the parts I really, really enjoyed about this whole bit and this riff was literally when the producer, quote unquote, speaks back to Wanda in the Modern Family setting, she goes, "No, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that." Yeah, because that is the bit, like, you're always going, well, why wouldn't someone just tell them they're being absolutely crazy? And why would someone not speak up and ask them? And it's fantastic because what you're seeing is not only do you have Darcy acting as the de facto audience and us in this thing, you also now just see they've riffed so well on all of these tropes of or sitcoms that they've gone to the point that they're Mobius stripping themselves. They're infinity looping. They've riffed so hard they've come back on themselves and had to kind of break the fourth wall again. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it is important. Like, obviously, the reference in this episode, the episode is called Breaking the Fourth Wall, which is this mechanism that they use in these comedy shows to talk to the audience directly through a camera, like in a documentary, differently to the way that normal sitcoms are filmed, I suppose. Yeah. So, but it is important to point out that also happened in the last episode. The Malcolm in the Middle reference in the episode was Tommy talking to camera as the episode opened, or Billy talking to camera as the episode opened. So it's not breaking the fourth wall this episode. They did also do that last episode as well. But I suppose what's really interesting is we now know that there won't be any more sitcom based episodes in the rest of the series, because the WandaVision TV show effectively has been cancelled at the start of this episode. So I thought that was an interesting little thing that's buried in amongst the discussions that are going on. So I really like that.
I think what we may end up getting over the next final 2 episodes is like the fact that Wanda is losing control.
Has
completely lost control. The spasming, I don't know what to call it, this fritzing, spasming of the objects across the decades. It's glitching. Yeah. I think that's going to be visually stunning over the next 2 episodes, because what I can see is a scene jumping between the different decades and sitcoms. As like, can you imagine like there's this conversation going on between Vision and Wanda, and it's jumping like each second, just jumping between a decade. That would have been horrible to film.
Yeah.
But it would have, like, visually, it will look stunning, because you'll have this jump cuts between 60s, 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s.
I wonder if they're going to just play it straight for the next 2 episodes, being in Westview, in the current setting of Westview, because we did see it in this episode. We had the kids, you mentioned in John's synopsis, the kids playing on their Wii, and then suddenly their remote turns into an N64 remote, and then it goes backwards to an Atari 2600 one, and then it goes backwards again to a card game. So that was a really good gag, that it's going backwards in time. And then we have Wanda sitting in the room, and all around her, every piece of furniture is changing to every decade, which is really cool effect. You're right. That's something that I'm sure was really difficult to film. And I think that just having one character sitting on the couch in the middle of it probably made it a little bit easier. If you had multiple characters in that scene while things are glitching all around them, that would be fab. But I would say quite difficult to film as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but great touches in there as well. And one other thing I have to say, we've complimented the performance of Elizabeth Olsen throughout the series. Her versions of characters throughout these sitcoms are fantastic. But this version of one of the main characters from Modern Family, Julie Bowen, who plays Claire Dunphy in Modern Family, she is pitch perfect. Yeah. Elizabeth Olsen is pitch perfect, and how she moves her hair when she's talking, how she reacts to the kids. It's so perfect. She's done such a good job in the show. Definitely.
So, question. Mm-hmm. Do we think this is Emmy potential? Now, the performance, I think, deserves one. I think it's on that level. Yeah. Do we think that they would give like a Best Actress to Elizabeth Olsen for WandaVision? Like, usually
I think they should.
I think
absolutely.
They should.
Yeah, the Emmys are actually well known for not being like the Oscars. They're not exclusive to genre TV by any means. I think actually the challenge for it is because it's coming out right now, and the Emmys for this year have already been awarded. And by the time it comes around next year, does anybody remember a show that came out in January 2021?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, unless it's a long running series.
Yeah.
And this may not be. This probably may not be.
So it may be something that we'll see for Falcon the Winter Soldier, which will stretch throughout the summer, and Loki, which will stretch throughout the summer. Potentially something in there, a character in there, maybe the one that will get the nomination for Disney Plus, or it'll be The Mandalorian next year, or whatever the next big Disney show that's on next year. You know. Yeah,
I'm a little skeptical that they would get that nod, I guess, from the Emmys. I think if anything, it would be something like The Mandalorian, and that's not because I don't think it deserves it. I just don't really kind of get that sense of it. I mean, I think, like, you know, if all of Westview ultimately die as a result of this and it's really dark, maybe. But I guess that's not going to happen.
But they have categories for comedies and musicals and that kind of stuff. And I think the reason why I think it might be a good contender for it, and it's a really good question, Chris, is because it's so reverential to television over the decades. Like, that's something that people who are in TV and want to give
That's
awards
true.
for TV will go, look how reverential they are to our entire history as an entertainment industry as well. So that's a really good
Well,
point.
then yes, they're going to get it.
There you go.
In that case, my one thing is obviously I've had to push people to this show, and everyone's like, "Oh, isn't that like the superheroes?" And you're like, "Yes, it's based on Marvel character superheroes. It's the Avengers, but it's so much more." And they're like, "Yeah, but isn't there like capes and flying and stuff?" And I'm like, okay, there is, but like it's that but I think would be the cause."
In fairness, as it's gone on weekly, the audience has now surpassed anything that I think even Disney were expecting. It's now among the top 5 trending shows in the world at the moment. So it is certainly gone past the audience that was expected, and the audience was expected to be huge.
Yeah, I would love to see it win an Emmy. I think sometimes for me though, and that's one of the things from this episode, and we're going to come to it later, but I think what Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany have done, as you say, Chris, that and you say, Derek, about the TV over the time since the 60s, the 50s, all the way through to the present day, that different slight kind of slant on the character that they're portraying in the sitcom, but that is amazing and really good. And the same with all the different actors involved in Westview. But I think that sometimes for me there's a slight disconnect, and it happened in this episode. Like the whole thing with the vehicle trying to get through the wall, it just kind of completely fell flat for me. I just didn't get it. It's like there's a lot of thought you can see being put into Westview, and then it's like they just almost didn't need it. Why didn't you just have Monica pushing back through the barrier?
We will definitely talk about that.
And it's like, always in the back of my mind, because we're talking about, the Office style and all of that. I know it's not relevant outside the Hex, but I was just there going, all these people would be fired the next day. It'd be like P45 because they've just effectively gone against the chain of command.
Potentially. We will definitely talk about that in a moment. Anything else about the style of this episode on the Modern Family style or The Office? I know one other thing to call out, the theme tune to the episode, first one that doesn't have words in it, and it is based on The Office theme tune. I think a little bit of Parks and Rec as well, which are both based in the same universe, basically. But yeah, that's the other kind of piece they took from the reality TV shows as well. What I wanted to call out in the next section in our note number 2, Vision meeting Dr. Darcy, what I did find a little bit weird about this is when Vision wakes back up, it actually does feel like he is also part of the sitcom still, even though he's supposed to be a bit more self-aware than he was in the last couple of episodes. At this stage, he's walked out and seen the real world for a couple of seconds and then fallen apart. But he does feel still a member of this comedy show, even though he's waking Darcy up from her conversion, I suppose, as she came inside, which I just thought was interesting that we'd have Paul Bettany still playing the comedy role, because that's not the Vision that we saw in the movies. So are they saying that this distinctly is not the Vision that we've seen? This is a reprogrammed Vision who doesn't have those memories, which we've heard a few times now, but is he not the same character that we saw for those decade or so in those movies?
I don't think he is. No, he's definitely not the same Vision. And we get that with Darcy explaining his background. We had it with Agnes, around telling him he was an Avenger and him just not being aware of it. And you have Darcy then here explaining the events of Infinity War, his multiple deaths, all of that.
It's a hilarious scene though.
Yeah, it is, but he doesn't understand that. So I think whilst he's absolutely cognizant of what's going on, he's still in that world of what he's been living through, even though it's for 9 days. That's his life as far as he's aware. And I think that's why you get him then going, why am I sat here, as you said, doing this response to camera in this documentary style? I just need to get back to my home with the twins and with Wanda. And why he leaves the farce of the ice cream van or the food van at the crossroads, because it's like, I don't need to be doing this because this isn't real. It's like
I can phase out and fly home. Basically.
Yeah, so he is in a sense caught between what he knows and what he's experienced and all this new information that he's received in the last few episodes as he's become aware of actually what's going on. So, I guess that's how I see Vision here.
Yeah.
But he's certainly not the same Vision. I mean, he even needs to be told that he comes from Jarvis.
That's true. Yeah.
So, like, his actual origin, like, he has no idea.
Because his response is, I've learned everything that Wanda went through, and I suppose me, but it doesn't feel like me. It feels like somebody completely different. So yeah, he's very clear on that. There's always been calls for Lewis from the Ant-Man movies to do a recap of the Marvel 23 movies that have happened so far, the Marvel Cinematic Universe in his style. I'd love to see Darcy do that for all 23 movies, because her version of what's important to keep in and give the impact of what's happened to Vision was hilarious. I thought it was really, really good. But one of the things here that we probably should talk about really quickly, we talked about last week what we hoped she'd be when she entered the Hex. She's an escapologist?
Escape artist. Yeah.
Yeah. My response is that was a missed opportunity. But no, it's not. It makes sense. She's an escapologist within a circus. But also, it wasn't gonna happen. It wasn't not, it's like many things in this episode. They have dashed our hearts with an opportunity and a feint, when they could have made her a cafeteria worker. No, they have gone as a, escapologist, and I did like that. That is her whole thing. She's escaping Sword.
Yeah, I did like her actual escape as well from the change. That was pretty good. And I think to the point where, Vision and Darcy in comedy roles, where Vision is kind of freeing her mind so that he gets Darcy rather than this escape artist. I love all the foreground background noises that are going on as
hilarious.
From the horns, the beeps, the trumpets, the roars, the whips, popping bell, all this kind of stuff. It is really funny. And just the whole thing with the strongman who's trying to get them into the big top to follow the lion tamer. Yeah. And it's just Vision in sort of that British apologetic mood where, no, the agent double booked. We're really sorry. We've got to get to another thing. I just thought that was really, I loved how that played out in the fairground environment with everything going on. I thought that was really funny.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that strongman was the guy who got the TV for her at the very, 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 very first or the second episode where we met Darcy. That's the Sword agent who was really mean and rude to her.
I could see that, yeah, and she does get to punch him in the nose as well, which is pretty good.
I absolutely love Darcy here. Like, this was fantastic. The pre-awakened Darcy even. Oh, fine, I'll go out with you, but I get lobster.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic. I really, really enjoyed. Again, I like Michael Pena. Kat Dennings is just one of these really fantastic kind of, if you want to call them character actors, or actors who just embody this character, or they've really become that character very well. And yeah, like Darcy Lewis she is the us in the Marvel universe. Wowed when Thor kind of first comes and talks about Asgard and the aliens. It was just a normal person, and now is enamored to the point that is a doctor in astrophysics, and knows about cosmic background radiation because of this superhero explosion. She is the us for the Marvel universe, and I want to see more of them. There is discussion of a X-File like Swords TV show being pitched, where Jimmy Woo and Darcy will be that. Now, again, it's being pitched, but those are the types. It's
not being pitched. It's people on the internet seeing something they like and going spin it off into a TV show. We had this with every show we've covered for the last couple of years, that everybody sees something they like in a show, and rather than going, this is a great thing in this show, they want to spin off with it. Spin-offs never work, right? But we have had 7 seasons of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was basically that. So go watch S.H.I.E.L.D. It's all available on Disney Plus, and it's an excellent show.
Did that work, Derek?
Yeah, it was great.
Yes.
It's one of the best shows that Marvel have ever done.
It did.
One of the things I do wonder about this episode, as lots of things are being revealed, I think this is going to be a bit of a theme about our points in here, is, are we pushing ourselves towards disappointment by coming up with the theories that we're coming up with? And I mean, everybody that's watching the show has so many theories. There's a couple of things that were revealed in this episode, and this is one of them. Just that little thing of everybody was talking last week, oh my god, Darcy's going into the show. Is she going to be playing her character from Two Broke Girls? Well, no, because they're creating a whole set of a circus. Everybody's a clown around her. So of course she's sitting right there chained to a car. She's going to be an escapologist because that's exactly what you would do with that as a scene. So us creating these ideas of what we think is going to happen in the future, maybe we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. I thought the scene was great and I thought what she did was really good. And I don't think they would have built an entire set of a cafeteria so that they could give her that moment in a role.
Well, I think the only thing they could have done to, reference that is because there was the mobile food van. So she could have been behind the counter of the mobile food van. But the thing is, what they did was they took the fact that she had been handcuffed to the vehicle by sword and put her as an escape artist, which is really good. Yeah. It makes sense. And ultimately, the scene of her as the escapologist is so short, that in some respects it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
And we have also been delivered with that great moment in the show where you have one of your main characters, Vision, going, I have questions, and Darcy responding to him going, I have answers. And it's that moment we've been waiting for a while, somebody going, I have the answers for you. But you kind of forgot, or I kind of forgot, that she's not giving him answers. It's not like she's able to tap him on the shoulder and go, you're Vision from the Avengers. Oh, I remember everything now. She's actually giving him loads of new information about who Vision outside of Westview was, effectively, and what's been happening inside. So that is interesting that she's done it that way. And thanks for explaining it to me earlier on. Let's get on to our commercial breakdown, gentlemen. And the center of our show, there is an advert in here for the Nexus. What does it mean, guys?
Center of all reality.
Of all reality.
Yes! Snap!
Do you need to escape reality, fellow defenders? Yes. I love this commercial breakdown, just purely from a commercial point of view, because it's selling a drug, an antidepressant. And I mean, I know whenever it's just, I guess it's for non-Americans that go to America and watch TV and see the amount of drug adverts where effectively something that is supposed to help ends up sounding as though it's going to kill you because of all the side effects. It's a really kind of, my brain can never process sort of pharmaceutical ads in the US because I'm like going, is this just going to make things worse when I take this? Because all that sort of conditions after it really sounds like it's just going to not help at all. Yeah. And here I just love that the antidepressant comes up with the whole side effects thing. I thought in a really kind of fun way, may cause more depression, confronting your truths, your feelings, your true feelings. So I thought this was just purely on that sort of straight level was really good. And isn't the last a real nice funny nod to those crazy pharmaceutical ads.
And isn't the last one may not actually cure depression?
Yeah, exactly. No, it may cause more depression. So it's like, it is that whole thing where it's like, this doesn't sound like it's gonna help people. I think I might just take paracetamol for everything, So really, really good.
And this one probably a pretty clear reflection of what we're seeing on the show with Wanda, specifically in this episode. She's depressed. She's lost control. And this is telling you, you can be anchored to reality or a reality of your choosing by taking this Nexus drug, which seems quite similar to what we've seen Wanda going through.
Yes and no. Yes, in that that part of it, the depression, it's on the nose. The Nexus being the center point, in that Wanda is the center point. She is the Nexus of this. It is all controlled and goes through her. In that's like she is the Nexus. She has control there. When you say, see, this is the thing.
That's a very interesting take, Chris. That is given what our different. 0.5 is.
Product being advertised here is called the Nexus, which brings up lots of comic book possibilities and also just the general idea of a nexus, a center of something as well.
Yeah, so my big bit is, as soon as they started saying Nexus, I went down the rabbit hole in my head going, oh my god, they're going to do the Nexus storyline. Oh my god, Agents of Atlas. Oh my god, vampires. Oh my god, multiverse. Oh my god, they're going to make Wanda the Nexus of realities. Oh my god. And I just literally had to stop myself because as you just pointed out earlier, I was like, oh, I think, unfortunately, I used the term before, burden of knowledge, and I think that's essentially what we're doing. because we have the burden of knowledge of Kat Dennings playing those two broke girls. It would have been brilliant. Like, we're writing better shows in our mind. Same thing that happened the last season of Game of Thrones.
I say different shows than better.
Sorry,
shows.
different. We're basically we're running so fast ahead of them, of the writers, going, oh my gosh, you did, and like there's probably reasons they didn't do X, Y, Z, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm now I'm taking a step back. I will happily discuss all the theories in the world, but I'm not going to get upset depending on who, what, where, when, how the show ends, or who's introduced and not introduced, who is the big bad, who's not, because it's a story they're taking us through. Because, yeah, would it be cool if they start bringing in the Nexus of Realities? Hell yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will they bring in Atlas and, like, Machine Man and Gorilla Man, if they bring in, like, all, Morbius, all of Jocasta, all of these really cool, no. Like, that may happen years from now, but like, I was sprinting as soon as they made it.
Yeah.
And what all essentially probably was an Easter egg. Going, hey, you guys know what a Nexus of Realities is. Yeah, we're going to call it that, just as a nice wink, wink, nudge.
Exactly. This show has 2.5 hours left, potentially. We'll probably talk about that later on as well.
Yes, we will.
And they'll close out the show, and there will probably be bits of this show that will be taken into future shows and future movies and all that kind of stuff. We've learned that that's the approach that Marvel have been taking for the last decade of doing their movies, is taking little bits of things that are in their shows and moving them on our movies and moving them on to other shows and movies in the future. So yes, there's the possibility that this reference to a drug called the Nexus, which anchors you to reality, or at least a reality of your choosing, is a bit of a gag on Wanda, but the name itself does have comic book ramifications, as we said.
It really does. Yeah, exactly.
But let's move on to point number 4. Because this is a bit of a big one.
Oh, yes.
I do like how you call it out here. This point is called Here Comes Spectrum.
Yes, we have Monica fighting her way back into the Hex after being warned by Dr. Darcy that her DNA will get rewritten once again if she goes back in through the Nexus. She went in once, out once again, and now the third time back through, we have this idea that she could be something bad could happen to her effectively. But yeah, this is the introduction of Monica Rambeau, the comic book character with superpowers, effectively.
Yep.
But should we talk about the kind of elephant in the room? Another one of the theories that was out there that kind of seemed disappointing in the show, but makes total sense. The person that Monica was reaching out to was a person that works in S.W.O.R.D., an aeronautic engineer in S.W.O.R.D. that is going to build this vehicle to get her in through the Hex, in past the Hex. So is that disappointing because we all thought it was a really big thing, or are they hiding something again in plain sight? I have a theory.
I know, yeah.
Go on, what's your theory?
My theory is that they are hiding something in plain sight, that possibly this character introduced as Major Goodner, who worked with Maria Rambeau, is potentially one of the Skrulls that we met in Captain Marvel. I have a feeling this show has to tie the Skrulls in somehow. Remember that Monica and Maria were very heavily involved in them and the Skrulls back and saving them back in Captain Marvel. There was a character that was in there, the daughter of Talos, who was the main Skrull that we saw throughout the movie. She was unnamed in the movie. We never got a name for her, but we did see that herself and Monica formed a friendship. They were sitting on the stairs, I think, playing Uno, the card game, together. In this episode, we saw the two twins playing Uno, so it's a little callback to that, possibly. But potentially this is the Skrull that Monica has been working with for a number of years, and she's taking on the persona of Major Goodner in order to hide on Earth still, all these years later. We know there's a show coming up called Secret Invasion, which will feature Nick Fury and Talos in that show, which is involving Skrulls as well. So potentially this is maybe a setup. We may see at the end of the series Monica shaking the hand of Major Goodner and she reveals that she's a Skrull. That might be a way to do it. But yes, a lot of pressure on this scene to deliver. I think people were thinking everything from this is where Tony Stark appears to this is where Mr. Fantastic appears in the show, and it will be revealed who the actor playing the Fantastic Four in the Marvel Universe will be, and it turns out to be a member of S.W.O.R.D. in here. So it may be something more. It may just simply be that what was actually introduced here is a Marvel Universe character into the TV show. Is that not big enough for us? You've got Spectrum here now, a character in the universe created by this scene, effectively. So what do you guys think?
I think for me, I really like your theory because that would elevate this whole thing. And there still must be some significance to this aeronautical engineer. And that's why I kind of like your theory because it would give it that oomph. Okay, it would be a retrospective oomph, but I think in the moment, it was just Major Goodner. Okay, who's this? Oh, it's just someone from Sword. And because it was very kind of just procedural, that it was, you know, one of her mates, colleagues from Sword coming in with this vehicle, which was equally a bit of a letdown. I mean, it looked cool as anything, but then really couldn't match up to the energy field.
It was a really weird one, wasn't it? It was like, Monica, this is made to your exact specs, and then it fails miserably trying to get in through the house.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was kind of, like the vehicle was rewritten. I did like the SFX with it being half, a normal car and half of it still this heavily fortified sort of space vehicle. Yeah. And I guess the reason why Monica had to escape it was in case she got rewritten into the metal of it, I guess, or something like that. Yeah. Well, because I wasn't entirely getting that. I just assumed that if it was rewritten, then she would be a passenger in that. So,
but she'd be a character in the show and lose her memories was the thing that she was trying to avoid.
But that could still happen going forward, and maybe the protective shell wouldn't have allowed her to have become Spectrum like we see when she goes through just as herself. But I kind of just feel should have just dropped the vehicle and gone through. And again, it's like I said at the start, I always I know it's based on comics. I know that there is always this thing about going against what I guess the authority figure within an organization says. So in this case, Haywood, and I get he's the evil person, but I was just there kind of going, like, this didn't feel right. I just wish she had walked through actually in the end. Because
she connected with this team that had provided her with a tool that didn't work and she just walked in.
Because Sword is still in the area. They've got their temporary base. You know, they've effectively just taken a bit of kit and are doing something on the fly without any authorization. And I'm just there going, I wish I could do that in my own workplace. I mean, that would be great, and then get all the praise for it. But it's that slight disconnect. It's that trope of what happens, which, very rarely do you see that. And so it takes you out of the moment. And I think that was what I was alluding to. I was just there going, okay, these people are being court-martialed then in the next episode, locked into prison, and Wu. Chain of command, you think of with S.H.I.E.L.D. and all of that, how Nick Fury has the chain of command. This felt like a coup within it. But I guess that maybe lends your theory about Major Goodner being a Skrull a bit more credence, because Major Goodner says, we've always been loyal to you. And so it felt like, very personal in that moment from Major Goodner to Monica. So, the actual whole thing of Monica becoming Spectrum was cool. Her pushing through the barrier, seeing her vision, and seeing all the spectra around the electricity cables and all that, I thought was really, really cool. I guess she could control it really quickly because she kind of just like shook her head as though she was kind of getting a bit of sort of something out of her hair, and her eyes returned to normal. So that's kind of pretty good control of her powers very quickly.
It's just the birth of her powers, and we don't really know what the powers are going to be in the show as well, but I have to say you're totally right. That scene as she pushes through, which shows all the different versions of Monica we've seen in the series all breaking apart, and she kind of pulls them back together with a little bit of inspirational voiceover.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And I have to say my favorite scene in the series, because we do have Nick Fury appearing in here. We have the voice of Nick Fury saying that you won't be able to fly like Carol Danvers unless you can shine like her, which is the inspirational quote that we heard from him back in Captain Marvel. So we have our Nick Fury appearance for the series. Woo! Yay! We are in the MCU. We have Maria Rambeau talking as well, and we have Carol Danvers as well. We have all three of those characters kind of talking their big moments or saying their big moments to Monica, which I thought was really cool as she creates herself into this superhero by pulling in the power and kind of resisting being rewritten almost. But that's kind of seems to be how the creation is, but I'm sure we're going to see more of her powers as the next episode comes out, really.
Yeah,
so.
and I guess for me as well, just because her surname is Rambo, which is like Rambo and Sylvester Stallone, seeing multiple Rambos, and he was in Guardians of the Galaxy, so I just assumed there was a nice little reference to Sylvester Stallone and his character.
That's
in
a
Guardians
really,
of the Galaxy.
really interesting connection there, John. Especially because
it's no connection. It's just my weird mind making all these connections.
Didn't Monica Rambeau come out in the 70s, and the Rambo movies were mid 80s, right? So she does predate and spells her name differently.
Well, that is true as well.
But it also lends credence to my theory that, and not just theory, my absolute assertion that S.H.I.E.L.D. is nothing like S.W.O.R.D., John. S.H.I.E.L.D. has got a chain of command. S.W.O.R.D. has people going, hang on, Director Hayward. Well, if Monica Rambeau had been alive, she would be director of this place. We don't trust Hayward. He's just lost half of his team. We are absolutely willing to go against him and support Monica.
I do have a quick counter argument to that, because effectively Hydra did infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D., so they also didn't know that people were going off grid and doing other stuff, despite all the secret kind of talks to the ear. I mean, it's like, surely someone noticed that a lot of people in S.H.I.E.L.D. were suddenly sort of getting in quite close and intimate to different people just to whisper in their ear. It's like, these people have got a lot of secrets. If you're a spy organization, they should have noticed it with all their tech.
It's all about compartmentalization, John.
Or whispering and tickling each other's ears. That's it.
Or maybe that there was some newfound relationship about to blossom as they kind of going in for a quick sort of like tongue in the ear.
S.H.I.E.L.D. are a very close agency. No.
So, my 2 cents. I like the idea of this. It would be perfect as a tie-in for Secret Invasion. Mm-hmm. That the Skrulls have been part of S.W.O.R.D., that they are working, they are living among us, the refugees are here, Earth is doing that, and essentially Secret Invasion is about a splinter offshoot of Skrulls who are bad, so it's then Fury and some Skrulls, as part of S.W.O.R.D., trying to save or go stop this splinter Secret Invasion of other bad Skrulls. Yeah. That would be cool, because this was They have said that this, like, in interviews, that the engineer would blow everyone's mind.
Oh, did they?
Like that. Yes, that was the thing. Like,
I
they
heard
said
nothing
that
of that. I heard loads of people on the internet saying the engineer's going to blow everybody's mind. I never saw an interview with anybody saying that, actually.
So in an interview, apparently. So what I think, this is either a double bluff or it's something that got away from them.
Right.
And I think that's the thing. I think this is yes, because it was everything from Riri Williams to Mr. Fantastic to, like, you name it. But the trouble is they did call out her guy multiple times. Like, it wasn't just, I got a person, they'll get us this thing. It was, I got a guy. I have a guy. This guy, the guy's going to meet us over the hill. Like, it was called out enough that it should pay off, if not in this later on.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to pay off. Because if it doesn't, then it was a bit of a dropped egg.
Yeah, exactly. And let's face it, it was never going to be Reed Richards. No. Like, it's, as you say, it's just having that lovely sort of ability to just go off in multiple tangents. I guess part of it, a bit like with my Rambo reference, it's partly the lockdown cabin fever. It's sparking everyone's imagination to take them out of lockdown or whatever. And as you say, burden of knowledge. So, and I think that's why, it being a Skrull, as Derek's theory, is kind of the, it's really good because it does kind of, some payoff retrospectively, I think, will be going to happen with Major Goodner, just because, it was kind of signposted a number of times and but who knows, maybe it isn't, as you say, maybe it just got away from them and ultimately this is not really going to have much impact at all, I guess. I think the bigger impact here is obviously Spectrum and Monica getting these powers by pushing her way through this hex energy field and with the changes to her DNA structure that happens, which was really, really cool. And she does get a superhero landing as well.
Yes, she does.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, as Wanda pushes her backwards, she lands exactly like the proper superhero landing. Very cool. There's a couple other things to pull in from this episode and other episodes. Remember, Wanda strengthened the barrier to the Hex before, so Monica hasn't traveled through the Hex with Wanda's power incorporated in it, so that also could be the reason that she's become Spectrum. A little call out as well when Wu and Monica are traveling over to meet the engineer. They talk through the email that Darcy had sent them. They now know that Hayward's plan was actually to get the sentient weapon that is Vision out of the Hex. He had no plans about Wanda at all. His plan is getting his sentient weapon back. So we know that is confirmed now. We have the moment when Monica is challenging Wanda, telling her all of this information, saying that Hayward is the bad guy. Do not make yourself the bad guy here. So kind of contravening one of the other theories that we had earlier on, I think last episode actually, that Wanda's the big bad for the show. Monica specifically calling out, don't make yourself the big bad here. The bad person here is Hayward, because what he wants is a weapon, and that weapon is Vision. So,
Project Cataract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clearing your vision.
Did we not say that last week?
Yes.
Like Project Cataract had something to do with Vision. And I hope we said that on the podcast at least.
We did.
We must have
If
done.
we didn't say it on the podcast, we said it to each other, because literally, I remember I made the joke, clearing your vision. And I then, when they called it out here again, I went, oh no. I work in a company where project names usually are ridiculous. And this is one of those, like, it's at a certain point, it's like, how on the nose can we call this project? It's okay. It's about Vision. We need to wipe Vision. We need to make him Mars. We need to clear our vision.
Yeah.
We're going to call it Project Cataract, clearing the vision. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
But you
go
can
sword.
absolutely see that, you'll absolutely see that they would do that in this type of organization. Those are my main call-outs, that I got, and kind of the connections now. We're up to episode 8. We now have the proper reveal that Hayward is not a bad guy. He's doing what he thinks is important to save the world, like the armor around the world that Tony Stark was looking for. Yeah. He's looking to use Vision to protect the world from extraterrestrial threats. He lost him because Wanda came in to steal him, and he's hidden within the Hex. So that's his plan. So we have that reveal. Anything else about that before we go on to the other big reveal from the episode?
It's going to pay off more. There's more to it than this is the setting up of a bigger thing. Like it's 100%. Like, it's not just going to end with this. There's similar to like Project Rebirth, with the creation of Captain America, that has paid off huge dividends in the comic books. Yeah. It's going to do the same. This is like, there is Project Cataract. This is one that's going to go for, similar to Howard Stark working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D., like all these little things, like the World of Tomorrow being an actual secret arc reactor, and like going all the way into Civil War, playing a part in Civil War and the Winter. Like, they're gonna tie all. So yes, this is a Project Cataract will at some point be called back. If not at the end of this, it will be in something else. Yeah,
perhaps just one other thing that I forgot to mention. The one scene that we had of Hayward in this episode was him saying that the operation's about to begin. They're effectively, seems like they're going to napalm Westview to get back Vision. Is what it feels like. It's some massive operation that they're just on the cusp of delivering. So again, while he's not the big bad, he has a plan that he feels is right for the world, of the people that were left behind by the people snapped away. That's his justification. As we always see with Marvel villains, they're always a little bit more in depth than some other villains in other stories. So it feels
diplomatic.
It does feel like we will see what his plan is, but his plan seems to be very violent and seems to be very exploding.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other thing for me from Monica getting her Spectrum powers and the superhero landing, I do like when she confronts Wanda. I like the response of Wanda where it's immediately, the barrier goes up, she gets her magic fired up. But I like that how Monica appeals to Wanda with her own pain and truth about loss and death. I think that's really really good. And I guess moving us into our point number 5, this is where then we get Agnes, coming in to, she sees the two of them, from her window and goes out to effectively, separate, Wanda from Spectrum, from Monica. At least at this moment, right in that moment, it's because it might kick off. But it just leads to this, absolutely great ending for this episode, from my side of things, which is, our point 5, which is, it was Agnes all along.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sing the theme tune, but it was a great theme tune.
It really, really was. Absolutely loved it. I will say, I'll totally call myself out here on this one. As I've heard the theory from the beginning, since before the show aired, that this was Agatha Harkness. All I've been doing for the entire series is looking for clues of Agatha Harkness, because I've said it multiple times in the show. I was going, there's nothing here, absolutely nothing here that tells you this character is Agatha Harkness. I'm obviously wrong, but that's the good thing, is they got me. And I think this is even more powerful than the show when the reveal actually hits. And it did land for me, this reveal that she is the big bad. She has been controlling, everything from the start. It is my understanding. Let's kind of go through it really quickly. So she's taken the twins, they've disappeared. The Billy and Tommy went over to her house. They have disappeared when, Wanda comes into the house. And then the explanation from Agnes as she takes over, the mind, I guess, of Wanda. She controls her with her purple power as opposed to Wanda's red power. And then we see this flash through the previous 7 episodes of what she has controlled since the beginning. I'm wondering if that opening scene, which she walks in, it's all in color. She walks in, changes into the 50s period costume, and everything goes to black and white, and then she gives a wink to the camera with it was Agatha all along. I'm wondering if that's saying that she did control the kickoff to these TV tropes from the 50s. Is that saying that she's the one that started it all, and Wanda's been trying to use her powers to control what she can throughout the series? Is that what that means?
I don't think so, personally. I'm so happy and ecstatic and mad and annoyed and just, it's mwah to the reveal. I think very much they playing the blinder with this to the point where everyone, yes, they lent into, you're all going to think she's Agatha Harkness. It is, like, you're all going to think it. She's not that person. Uh-huh. To get to the point where, surprise, she is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, really? That was good. To the point where, like, I had called it out 2 episodes ago. I was like, no, she's a good person. Like, she was training. And then it's like, no, surprise, she's one of the bads.
Yeah.
Again, I'm saying one of. Uh-huh. I think there's, again, more to this. Yeah, it was just such a good reveal. It was so well done. The end goal, I don't understand. And I think that will come out over the next 60, 70, 80 minutes. Or like, if we have 237 minutes, it's going to be close to 80. That's where I was going one time, not talking about a previous, rumor. But, yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah. I mean, John? Well, the end goal is to tie it into Multiverse of Madness. Oh, so, okay. I mean, I guess it,
for the showrunner, but what's Agnes's and Agatha's end?
But I think, her character will be a vehicle for that. We've now got another magic user. Mm-hmm. As Agatha says herself, you didn't think you were the only magic girl in town.
Yeah.
So, I guess she's there to help that along. I agree. I think there will be another bigger bad. Whether we'll see it in this, it's maybe it's too early in the next phase of Marvel to be suggesting, even though it's great that, it's Mephisto or it's Reed Richards or whatever it is. These are going to happen down the line. Effectively, I think at this stage, now that we know how Marvel does it, think 10-year timeline, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, it's not going to happen here. This is maybe just a smaller cog in a vehicle to connect it to Multiverse of Madness. Who is she an agent for? We will need to find out. As I say, if the, Multiverse of Madness, then it's potentially Nightmare here. Another person who can manipulate reality, and how this is fitting in. That's what I'm excited about to see. And I think what I really liked with this Agatha reveal was that it was both signposted, but really subtly. And, the theory was out there that it was Agatha, but then how it was played in the show, it was still signposted. I mean, ultimately that witch's costume, yeah, it is a signpost. It's a reference, even though it's on Halloween, to that she's a magic user. And all these, these moments where we were interpreting it as agency and there's something slightly different. Well, it was. Now we get the reveal through the sort of, with the song titles about it's Agatha all along, that she brought Pietro there. We have, that she kills Sparky as well, R.I.P. But I have to say I did laugh at that. Maybe I shouldn't have done as much as I did. It was just that her delivery was really good, and just
Catherine Hahn is just wonderful to see.
And just how it finished off the tune, and that maniacal laugh, just all really, really good. So I like the fact that I had convinced myself that it wasn't. And then it is. I guess as well, the other thing is, and it's something you mentioned, Derek, after we just watched it, Agatha Harkness, I mean, I probably have read 0 comics that have her in. And if
I've read 2.
But what I mean is just her character is, I'm not going to say a B character, but
she's D. She's
exactly.
D. She's like.
So again, that's another reason not to think that it's going to be her, you know?
And not everybody's a comic book reader and not everybody knows everything about Agatha Harkness. I joked the other day that when the character is revealed, all comic book fans would probably still have to Google who this character is. Even when the theories were out there months ago, everybody was probably Googling who this character was. Because not very many people would know who this character is. There are some moments that she's been in the comics, but it's not like she had her own book at any stage, which went on for 10 years and had massive readership. But the one thing about the character in the comics is that she's not a villain. There's not stories of her being the villain. She's a helper character. And in the show
she's a nurse. She's a nanny.
She has been, absolutely. And she's been a helper character for Wanda as well, helping her use her magic. In here, she looks quite villainous. She's just taken over the mind of Wanda as the episode ends. And as we hear in the theme tune for her and as we see in the scenes for the whole series, it seems like she's been messing with Wanda is how it comes across from the lyrics, that she's been playing her game and messing up the plans of Wanda throughout the last few episodes. So I'm intrigued. It's such a minor character. To turn her into a villain wouldn't hurt anybody. Nobody would be pissed off if she became the bad guy. But in comics, she is a positive character, let's say.
Yeah, and to Chris's point of being a nanny, she is the natural, logical progression of Mary Poppins here. The dark, sinister side of Mary Poppins. And the reason why I say that is, again, not because of Lockdown Cabin Fever, but because I think the really interesting thing with this is the children, and in particular the twins. That she was asked to look after them. We still don't know where they are at the end of this. We don't see them in the basement. And, that has implications depending on what happens to the children, for Wanda, potentially. Again, that's reading into the comics and the burden of knowledge. Whether it goes that route is another matter, but it's a nice, interesting touch point, that it could really, crush Wanda if the kids have been taken away, removed from this reality,
Yeah. So for me, this reveal was everything and anything. And I think that's the best way. I am now even more doubtful that she potentially is the bad guy. In that basically the next episode they could go, she was, as you said, she was messing. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Right, maybe she was doing this to mess with Wanda to make her better. It was Agatha all along. Could be it was always her trying to prod, to poke, to make Wanda more powerful.
Okay.
To bring her to a point where she could rewrite reality at a molecular level. There's so much more to this. Okay. So I do like the idea if they make her a bad a bad guy or woman in this case. It's interesting. The one thing I will say is there is going to be someone behind this further. So do you remember in Avengers, we had Loki and then the Chitauri, and then the Chitauri was reporting into Thanos.
Yeah. As was Loki, yeah.
As were Loki, but Loki was going to Chitauri first. Mm-hmm. He was going into, we had the agent of the Chitauri. But essentially, I think it will be on that. There is multiple. So we've had the Mephisto, we've had Nightmare, and now just because they showed the glimpse of a book on the desk, her grimoire, which probably is the Darkhold, which we've seen in The Runaways, which we've seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they played quite big piece there. You've now got this additional angle of, okay, it's Chthon. Now, hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out. If it is the Darkhold, so in the comic books, that book is a nexus for his power, all of his evil spells. Chthon, he's this entity on Earth. He is linked to the creation of vampires and werewolves in the Marvel Universe. Mm-hmm. We know we have Blade coming up. He is known to corrupt multiple Marvel characters. Right. Wanda is known to be, he is his ultimate vessel.
Yeah.
It's where he wants to possess, who he wants to possess. And he is known to possess well-known magic users. He corrupts magic users.
Yeah.
So potentially Agatha was good. Mm-hmm. Potentially she's been corrupted by this Chthon, and that is going to be the Thanos of whatever, 10 years down the line. Okay. It's that kind of I think that this reveal for me was I'm so happy by this. You're twisting you were zigging, as I always say. They zigged when I thought they would zag.
Uh-huh.
They made me go, oh my God, I knew this was coming, and I'm still so happy with this reveal.
Right. Excellent.
And I think that's it.
Yeah. I think once again, we're projecting very far into the future.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
taking lots of things. One of the things that I would say is the Darkhold in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and in Runaways looks very different to this book. We know from Doctor Strange there are hundreds of magic books, some really restricted magic books for very powerful magic users. So it could be any magic book. It may not be the Darkhold. So totally understand these things are subject to what we actually will see on the screen. Will they have enough time to introduce another major big bad that will play out in this series? I'm not sure.
Can I just say one thing though?
Yeah.
In Doctor Strange, do you know how all the books are contained? What kind of shape? It's a hexagon.
Oh, in the library.
In the library, all the books are contained in a hexagon shape.
Very good.
Anyway, continue, sir.
Very good, very good. I do want to bring in the post-credit scene into this scene just to kind of have a little bit of explanation, I suppose, for where I think it's going with Agatha Harkness, I suppose. I do think she's the bad guy, in a way. I think she's feeding off Wanda's powers. We kind of have two options here of what could be going on with Westview. Either Westview turned into this captive city, and Wanda and Agatha are both in here battling with their powers unbeknownst to themselves. They're battling with their powers and Agatha is controlling it. Or Agatha's the one that kicked off Westview and Wanda's fighting with her powers against the control of Agatha. Now Agatha has her captured in the basement. And as we see in the post-credit scene, these, what are we calling them? The roots that are in the basement of Agatha's house.
The creepy roots.
Yeah, they're, as we see in the final scene, we see them pulsating with the purple power of Agnes. So she's possibly drawing off the power of Wanda. She's possibly taking her magic powers and forcing them into some form of containment for herself or a way of getting more power for herself. That's kind of what I would think are the two biggest options right now, with nothing else that could possibly happen in the future. Yeah. There's loads of other options, but what we've seen so far, that's what I think is happening. One of those two options.
I mean, I think as well, we have to remember, and it's to the idea of, the first moment we see Agatha arriving in the 50s, turning everything black and white. Yeah. Wanda does say, She doesn't know how she got there.
Yeah.
Was she, bringing Vision here and that was it? Or, again, with the book, whether the tome of evil, whether that's the Darkhold or whatever, and with the containment of Westview, is that the battle to contain the book? Wanda is actually the really good guy here because she is containing the book and there is this just battle, going on. And Agatha, it was to try and make that amnesia for Wanda, so she has no idea what she's doing, to try and gradually break it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. But I kind of feel that Agatha is the cause of the amnesia. And maybe that's to depower Wanda so that she's only just changing the glitches and time element, and all of this. I also wondered, we didn't see Ralph, and I kind of alluded to this in the synopsis. Was he the rabbit? Is that the rabbit? Because she seems quite attached to the rabbit. She brings it down into, ye olde scary place in her basement.
Yeah.
And so
we've seen that rabbit from episode 3 or episode 4.
So is Ralph the rabbit?
And she did call him the star of the show when we were introduced to him first.
I think it's her son.
Yeah, there are loads of theories out there as to who it is. We have some feedback on it, which we'll probably talk about later on. But again, loads of options here. Let's talk quickly again just about that final scene, because this is the first post-credit scene we've seen in the show. So show ends, Agatha saying she killed Sparky. That's the end of the episode. Wanda's trapped in the basement. But what we actually see in the post-credit scene is that Monica is there. Monica is there to save her. She's found a way into the basement. She's opened those doors and is about to go in. And Pietro arrives, someone that we haven't seen throughout the episode, in a completely different looking outfit from what we've seen him wear before as well. But we know from the Agatha moments that he is working with Agatha, at the very least. If she hasn't just conjured him from nothing, she possibly has conjured him from this Ralph husband that she's mentioned the whole time.
Is he Ralph? Exactly.
Is he Ralph? Is he her son, as you mentioned, Chris? There's a possibility that that's who it is. But yeah, who is he? But he is working with Agnes.
Snooper's gonna snoop.
What did you think of having a post-credit scene in the show?
I loved it because the timing works. The first Marvel films had in the early 2000s or the late 2000s had the end credit scene, so it makes sense that before we hadn't had end credits because the era wasn't correct. Now the era is correct. It makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Do you think anybody was caught off guard by this post-credit scene?
100%.
Because everybody's seen these 9-minute credits at the end of the Disney Plus shows. Have people stopped sitting in the theater to watch the post-credit scenes like we used to do with Marvel? Have we been untrained by the first 6 episodes of WandaVision?
The fact now that it's happening, I was so happy. But yeah, no, from the reaction I saw on social media, throughout the day before I got to watch it, because everyone, I think you said it first to me, stay and watch it after, and I was like, alright, and then it wasn't spoiled, but so many people going, oh my god, I missed this! Yeah. And you're like, yeah, well, that was on purpose. They did this on purpose. And
luckily there's no Netflix style go to next episode after 10 seconds. So you may have just stumbled over it like we did. We were writing our notes for after watching it the first time and stayed watching the credits and saw this bit. But because the credits have been so long, and after they gets past the standard WandaVision credits, there's nothing really to stay for. They're very basic credits after that. Although they do have some awesome outro theme music in general. That's it for our discussion about this episode of WandaVision. Loads more to come. We've got our feedback section. And we've of course got our pub quiz question for this week. But Chris, do you defend episode 7 of WandaVision, breaking the fourth wall?
100%. This is the one that it brought me back like a super crack. I don't know. I was trying to rhyme and it didn't work out well. No, 100%. This brought me, this for me was an episode that I was just glued to throughout. Very much so. Again, maybe because I had more of a touchstone with Modern Family and in terms of the timing. I don't know. This for me resonated so well. Was there the odd letdown? Yes, but it was more than made up for by the reveals. And it's 2 episodes to go. And I just, so much I wanted so badly for the next episode to be available. Like, more than ever, I was just like sitting there going, I don't want to wait until next Friday.
Right.
Just give it to me now. Now. But yes, I defend this episode. John, do you defend this episode of WandaVision?
Yeah, I really do defend this episode of WandaVision. Loved it. I thought, really, apart from a slight little glitch in the timeline with the vehicle, I thought this was really, really good. I'd give it 4.5 creepy purple creepers out of 5. I loved the reveal of Agatha Harkness. We've been talking about whether she was and just what level of agency she had, and then kind of pulled back from it after what we'd seen. And then just to have everything showing her little sort of inputs, in flashback to a jaunty theme tune, was really, really good.
Mm-hmm. I love a jaunty theme tune.
Absolutely. I loved the stuff with, Vision and Darcy. I loved Monica getting her powers. This was all just really great. And this, again, answers some questions to the show, but, again, how it's feeding into the next movie, which this show will, is really good. And I guess that book, with its, sort of little wispy powers coming from it, down in that basement from hell, I can't wait to see over the next 2 episodes. So yeah, absolutely defend episode 7, breaking the fourth wall.
And I wanted to check every single cabinet that was in that basement to see what other tools and stuff that Agatha had hidden down there.
Well, that's it. I was looking for, I know there was some symbols on the wall above the arches, and I just couldn't really quite make them out, whether there was something of significance there, certainly just because you have that. So, I need to just look into that a bit more, I guess.
Yeah, there was a symbol of Bahamut.
Yeah.
There was a symbol of goat, who in the comic books, Bahamut looks more like a goat.
Okay.
And that looks like the symbol of what's on her brooch.
Right.
So there was also if you're to believe it, there was a kind of a weird 60, 90 number. And that's, looks like the Darkhold, and that's Cathan. Yeah, like, people are like, on Twitter, and I'm waiting until we finish this, our discussion, because I didn't want to influence it, but there are threads upon threads on Twitter, if you really want to go there, peeps,
and on Reddit and everywhere else.
Yeah, a lot of threads.
Absolutely. And there's, as I mentioned earlier on, loads of discussions over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV podcast industries as well. Check them out. There's some really, really interesting theories.
Yeah.
I also defend this episode as you guys. I think it's really, been so much better for the three of us because we talked ourselves out of thinking this was Agatha Harkness.
Yeah.
So the reveal is like, oh great, okay, it was brilliant. That's really good to see. So I'm really happy. I thought it was really cool. And seeing Spectrum being created in the show, having the creation of a new superhero in the show is just so cool. So really looking forward to seeing the powers of Spectrum in the next 2 episodes. And I think with all the discussion, all the talk and all the theories, what I love most about it is literally anything could happen in the next 2 episodes. There's, I think, theories about 20 or 30 different possible characters that could appear in this show, and nobody knows. It's so well guarded. It's great. I love that about WandaVision.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Let's get over to the pub, boys. Oh, I wish. John, can you give us this week's pub quiz questions?
Yes, fellow defenders, episode 7 pub quiz question is, what number house does Agatha Harkness live at in Westview?
In this episode, importantly, we have seen the numbers of houses changed. We do see it in this episode. Some of our questions are difficult. Some of our questions are easy. I think this one's quite difficult.
What?
But what is it again, John?
What number house does Agatha Harkness live at in Westview?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pub quiz. It's supposed to be challenging.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a constant tension here, fellow defenders. Derek always wants to give so many clues away.
No.
Whereas I'm kind of make it tough.
Yeah, but if you have...
Strict task.
I don't think this is particularly tough. I think it's very easy to pause and find it.
On Disney Plus, it's terrible to pause on Disney Plus. Every time I've been trying to find Easter eggs, it takes me ages to go back and forth through an episode. It's really annoying. I much prefer having physical media where it's easy to pause stuff. Anyway, yes, send in your answer to our pub quiz questions to feedback@tvpodcastindustry.com. If you've missed any of the questions, pop on over to tvpodcastindustry.com. You'll see a list of each of the questions that we have. Send in your answers after the show is finished. I think our cutoff date is about the 10th of March, when we'll be recording our final podcast about WandaVision and pulling out the winner for the Funko Pops that we have.
But gentlemen, it's about time we walk on over to our feedback sections. First up, we have an email from none other than Ethan Michaels. He has this to say. Long-time listener, first-time participant. Love listening to your show at work. Just a funny little thing. I wake up at 4 every day to work. I have off Thursdays and Fridays. I wake up at 4 a.m. in general because of my job and usually go right back to bed. But I refuse to go back to sleep on Fridays knowing there's an episode waiting for me. Mm-hmm. Then I go back to bed, watch it again in the afternoon. Anyway, keep up the great work, guys. Ethan. Thank you, Ethan. Mm-hmm. I hate, wow, ow. Ouch. Night shift. But I guess the best part is a 4-hour sleep. You get to watch it and then go back to bed and then get up and then watch it again later that next day. It's a good way of doing it.
Well, literally this week, we have learnt that Disney Plus crashed for the first time, on the release of WandaVision, which is middle of the night in the US. We're talking 3-4 a.m. In the US and in a lot of states. So, we're talking the middle of the night and Disney Plus crashes because WandaVision's coming out. They probably were hoping releasing it in the middle of the night as a way to allow the world to watch the episode at the same time, because nobody will stay up all night, but there's so many spoilers out there that everybody wants to just watch it. And people being in lockdown around the world probably helps that. It gives the opportunity for people to get up in the middle of the night and watch it. Thanks so much for getting in contact, Ethan. Really good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ethan. Another email through from Graham Rutter. He goes, "Hi guys, thanks again for another great series review. Regarding Monica's mysterious aerospace engineer, what is the common trope from all of the MCU films? A cameo from Stan Lee. Following on from the final episode of Mandalorian Series 2 and the recent Star Wars films, could WandaVision not use CGI to bring back a much-loved character?" Graham. Thanks, Graham. That's certainly within the realms of reality.
Graham.
I guess. But yeah, I mean, who knows what they would do?
Oh, Graham, I'm not too sure.
I would love it, but because I do love Stan, but unfortunately, because he's passed, I think it would be I think it's still too soon. I think in another couple of years they might do it as a nice surprise. Also, Stan's estate is currently in a lot of disruption. His rights, everything like that, based on family stuff going on. It's all out in the news. Go if you want to read. Go read. It's a terrible, very terrible story. But in 5 years, maybe they'll do a nice piece. But I think it would need to be done very, very tastefully, and there would need to be a lot of love and care put in, similar to Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the shows previously just had. And I mean, TV shows just had posters of him. They could be done in that way.
All the Netflix
I guess.
Yeah. All the Netflix shows, that was the only cameo we got from Stan Lee. I think it would be a bit insensitive at this stage if we popped him into to one of the TV shows as a CGI character. I'm just not sure they're going to be doing it. But thanks very much, Graham. That's a really fun idea. Another email we got in from Jerry says, "I just watched episode 7. I feel Marvel was trolling us with the engineer, telling us how important this person was. This was my least favourite episode of the series. It was slow in execution, and the Darcy Vision stuff was a big letdown for me. Agatha's revealed at the end was not a surprise. But she is not the big bad. She is doing things to get her son back, who is the rabbit, I think. She will do whatever it takes to get him back. Maybe she made the deal with Mephisto. The Nexus commercial is how we get to the multiverse, so Westview has to be the Nexus of realities for the MCU. In the comics, the Nexus of realities is a swamp in Florida guarded by Man-Thing. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. Jerry in Niceville." I could see from exactly what Jerry's saying, I think we talked about it earlier on as well, just that idea of building up where we think the show is going and it not taking the turns that we expected can absolutely feel like a disappointment. I, for one, loved Darcy and Vision together. I thought they actually worked really well for me in the show. I'm glad we have some scenes with the two of them together.
Yeah, I already said I enjoyed it. I think this is the burden of the burden of knowledge, is the burden of reality, the nexus of realities, if you want. It's the WandaVision is the nexus of all of our theories coming together into one place.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, just not paying off for everyone. My advice to the listeners going forward for the next 2 weeks is just basically suspend all belief, let them take us on a journey.
Well, I hope so.
Take us where they want.
You have just listened to an hour of us theorizing about what's going to happen, so I'm sure you all have your own theories. Interesting one again about possibly Agatha trying to save her son, who is the rabbit. The real star of the show, as I said, as he was introduced. That's so interesting. I'd love to see how that'll play out.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jerry. And yes, the nexus being how we get to the multiverse. Maybe that's the only way we connect to Multiverse of Madness. Maybe it's simply that. But it'd be interesting to see.
I am telling you right now, if this was possible in the Marvel Universe, Doctor Strange should be on the Jersey Turnpike right now, getting out to this place where magic is going on, right outside of New York. You know, when Thor and Loki arrived in New York City to find Odin, Doctor Strange appeared instantly, trapped Loki immediately, and brought Thor over to his house. Like, he is on top of this stuff, you know, so he should be on the Jersey Turnpike right now.
Yeah, no, unless the hex, that energy field is the blind spot. For him, you know, there is that. And
true.
Again, in terms of timelines, maybe he's dealing with a few other things at the moment, you know, but I think you're right. There's going to be that connection. So I guess he might be winging his way down that turnpike,
as we speak.
If the hex breaks down and, you know, his magical, senses start a-tingling, dare I say it.
I love this, but I just would love to hear a certain, Jersey-based, podcaster, known, for his other films. He's also a director, to find out that Westview, New Jersey, is the nexus of all realities. I do believe Kevin Smith will go off on one and just literally scream on a podcast. I can't wait to hear it.
This is how we get Kevin Smith into the universe. You want Jersey? we have Jersey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Jerry. Also on email, Victor. Greetings, Derek, John, and Chris. What an episode. The Agatha Harkness reveal is a gas. Agnes was always a suspected accomplice, but this is huge. Not surprised she killed Sparky. What could be Agatha's endgame? I remember Agatha as Franklin Richards, governess in the comics. Probably won't translate here, but Monica's bravery reminds me of other fictional captains even before her powers. The Hex, plus 2 magic users, is sure to attract the attention of Doctor Strange, and or maybe Doctor Doom. Remember, Doom's mother was a sorceress. The end theme reminds me of the Addams Family and the Monsters themes. I can hardly wait for episode 8. As always, looking forward to your podcasts. Excelsior, Victor Von Doom.
Victor, I want to give you huge applause for tying in John's weird theory of Doctor Doom to these magic users in Westview. Well done.
It really isn't a weird theory. Okay. These two are kind of like, I guess, Marmite and marmalade or something like that. Bread and butter. I don't know, like whether they're complementary or whether they are not complementary, like Marmite and marmalade. Although marmalade and cheese would be quite nice.
Or Marmite and the mouth, which are not compatible.
I love Victor's suggestion here. And again, Doom's mother was a sorceress. Maybe, just maybe, there is some elevation, I guess, of Agatha in this. Could be. Again, I love this. It probably won't happen, but who cares? It's exciting because it really does get the old synopsis firing as to what could be. But I guess we'll have to see. Yes. And can't wait for episode 8 as well. I think Yeah, it's just going to be really good to see 8 and 9.
Yep, no idea what's going to happen next. Let's pop on over to Facebook feedback. Thanks so much for that, for all the emails we've gotten in.
First up, we have some feedback from Dave Horrocks. I think the creators probably wanted that reveal at the end to hit home a lot more. Lots to unpack in this episode, though. I think it did, and I suppose it's just some of us, it didn't. It's a Marmite. There you go. See? Tying it back. All about that Marmite. We also got some feedback from Ray, who had this to say. I think the reveal was cool for Agatha Harkness, but the jaunty song for Agatha felt a little flat. The most exciting thing for me in this episode was to see Monica's acquire, or at least trigger, her powers. So cool when Wanda looked surprised at Monica able to counter Wanda's hex. Vision and Darcy were humorous, but inevitably their involvement in this episode really didn't further anything. The space rover that arrives and the reveal of Goodner as Monica's contact also felt a little anticlimactic. I guess with all of our speculation, our imagination got the better of me for this episode. I commented to Eve, if people and objects could be altered and the very reality itself, what good would a space rover going to have? Ultimately, this episode progressed to who is behind a lot of things, but I felt this episode perhaps overall was the least exciting so far. Still, very interested to see how they close this out. Though with the big bad revealed, you'd think the upcoming finale will be somewhat by the numbers. If I were to defend this, I'd still give it 3 purple vines. Always fun to see Vision in a comedic performance. Oh, I gotta say, was a bit disappointed in Denning's acting when it came to her being one of the circus troupe. She still had that sassy attitude and not a painted smile kind of behaviour, but that team up was still cool. Thank you so much, Ray. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it essentially we all, our imagination speculations got the better of us for a lot of this. I still think 3 purple vines is still a good score. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a recommend on our podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, everybody's refusing to accept that the big bad has been revealed. So there's still loads of possibility coming up.
It's like the rabbit.
Maybe. It absolutely
Can you
could
imagine?
be. Maybe Agatha changed Mephisto into a rabbit and now she's trying to use Wanda's powers to get the rabbit back to being Mephisto. It could be anything.
It could. We saw the Colonel in Watership Down. Rabbits are evil.
Some
But
definitely.
the rabbit is Ralph, guys.
I know, well, that's my theory.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You need to listen,
Sorry, I wasn't listening to you.
I know.
Or the rabbit is Pietro, who is Ralph.
I know
Yeah,
this,
absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ray. Our next piece of feedback comes in from Brandy Elise Anderson, who said, this episode felt a bit like episode 4 for me, answering some questions, giving us a few more, confirming some of my theories, and setting us up for the next act. Not to mention seeing it from Agnes's point of view as a montage version of seeing the first 3 episodes from Sword's point of view. Questions. Did Darcy read the file or just send it to Wu? And if she did, why didn't she tell Vision?
Yep.
Also didn't seem like she told him about Wanda finding his body in pieces. Who is this group of Monica's? There seemed to be a weird moment when Major Goodner mentioned Monica's mom not being the only one they were loyal to. Gave me similar vibes as when Carol is mentioned. What is Hayward's plan? How does he think he could stop all this, especially after time? Interesting questions, Brandy. I think we mentioned that we have a theory about who Goodner is and what that could possibly be. Whether it will play out or not, only time will tell, I suppose. My feeling on the reason why Darcy is holding back some of the information is because she's basically trying to tell a person who doesn't have any memory of what happened to them in the past. She's trying to tell them what happened to them. So probably pull your punches a little bit in that. Maybe not. The last time we saw you, your body was in 25 pieces, being experimented on by this group from Sword. I can kind of understand why she would hold back, but she is trying to tell him, as she jokes, trying to tell him the most important beats of what happened to him in the past so that he can at least understand the context of why everybody is focused on the hex.
Yeah, very much like if you're going to tell people, oh, by the way, you were dead. Mm-hmm. Oh, before that, you were split into at least 5 or 6 different elements. They'd strung you out. Oh, and there's currently a project to deconstruct you and create you into a new, different being.
Into a weapon.
Into a weapon. But it's cool. Go focus on this other thing, this other reality bending, warping issue, and then we'll focus. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I very much agree.
Thanks so much, Brandy. Richard Blaze over on Facebook says, good episode. Not great and not the best of the series. Seem to be filling in a few gaps, ready for the last few now. Mm-hmm. Personally, though, I love the song at the end, and the extra scene makes you wonder how it's going to play out now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely an element, as we said, about answering the questions, having that post-credit scene, and also Agatha's involvement to song is always good, I think. And I really like the earlier suggestion that it was a monster-esque theme, like suggested by Victor. Mm-hmm. So that was really good as well. So thanks so much, Richard, for that. Also on our Facebook group, Heather Wallace says, is it unseemly to gloat? Agnes saying she bit a kid once doesn't bode well for the twins by the end. It's a bit Hansel and Gretel, isn't it? I really like that suggestion, Heather. It really is. And certainly with the kind of the milk, and I guess it was a sandwich or something, or maybe some sort of treats on the coffee table when Wanda sits down. Maybe she has eaten them. Maybe they're in the oven roasting. She can whip up a meal pretty quickly, like we saw in episode 1. Mm-hmm. And also Heather goes on to say, my life goal is now to sashay down a path while winking at my audience over my shoulder, just like Agatha. I think that is a lot of people's life goals. It's certainly one of mine, is to sashay, not away, but yes, down, and with a nice sexy wink.
Well, Heather, you have been predicting that it's Agatha Harkness since the first episode, I believe, from feedback. So, you absolutely can gloat. And yes, with that knowledge, you can sashay away. Thanks, Heather. Also had some feedback from Alan Thomas over on Facebook. He says, okay, the Agatha Harkness truthers got their satisfaction, but I stand by what I said before, which is that if it turned out to be the case, I was going to side-eye the twist, because it meant the writers were not playing fair with the audience. Having Vision use his magic trick and having it appear to work is dirty pool, especially since there's no particular reason for her to react the way she did if she could choose any reaction she liked. Same goes for the way she asked Wanda if she wanted to do the scene again. And we also have Monica Rambeau reporting that she could feel in her mind that it was Wanda who was behind it all. These are misdirections that smack of trying to mess with the audience rather than originating organically within the story. That's an interesting take, Alan. Definitely. I know that we do have that moment revealed in this episode that Agatha is staring away from Vision, composing herself to perform as if she's been released from the control, I suppose. So it is in there in this episode, and they have been hiding all of these moments, as we saw throughout this during the season. I don't know. I liked how the reveal was done in this episode. I don't feel taken advantage of by not knowing it. I also still don't understand how anybody knew it was Agatha from the beginning. I still don't get it. I don't think there was enough in the show, as I've mentioned multiple times, but people did. People got it. So well done.
Thanks, Alan. I mean, I certainly, we did have that moment. I think it was with Norm where he says, she's in my head. And we said, is it Wanda or could it be someone else? Yeah. So I think it was there to discuss for sure, about that, like the witch's costume. I guess the sleight of hand, which I feel is quite a nice little metaphor given its magic uses, is that, there were other things going on in the background. I mean, I was happy, enough with it. And also, so thanks so much, Alan, for that. I should also say with Heather, sashay, you stay. I said, not sashay away. Derek.
Okay.
She can sashay, you stay, because she got Agatha correct. She was there. All from the beginning saying it was Agatha. Mm-hmm. So gloat is allowed as well. I should have mentioned.
And for any of our listeners who do not watch Drag Race, that is a Drag Race reference.
Absolutely. There's 12 seasons. Go watch it. That's awesome.
Yes, exactly.
Dr. Bob Phillips says, I was right about Agnes being a serial killer, or at least she has more than one skull she happened to pick up at a car boot sale. And I'm so glad we're getting the full rainbow of powers of Westview. How did Darcy stay in her right mind, though? And most importantly, where is Dottie? We did see Dottie in this episode. We saw Dottie gardening when the final battle was going on with between Wanda and Monica. Darcy didn't stay in her right mind. She was a character in the circus TV show until she got tapped on the brain by Vision, I suppose. So, yeah, really interesting. I do love that description though, Dr. Bob, that she's a serial killer because she has more than one skull, in her house.
I do want to know, Dr. Bob, how many car boot sales have you been to where there is skulls to purchase? Just gonna say, probably not a good car boot sale. Just gonna leave that there.
They do have to get them somewhere though, don't they? But I understand, you might come across one in your entire lifetime, but if you have more than one, that means serial killer. I like it.
Well, the church likes a good skull occasionally.
Some churches more than others.
Yeah, exactly.
We also got some feedback from Alan F. Jope, who said, best episode yet. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's his feedback. And yep, I don't know best episode yet, but definitely a great episode. Thank you, Alan. We also got some feedback from Claire Payne, who had this to say: loved the Mullen family theme to this episode. My favorite moment from this episode was Darcy and Vision. Mm-hmm. Thoroughly enjoyed the whole episode. I'm very excited. It's very exciting where each episode leads us to next. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the one there. This is the cliffhanger. This is the ultimate cliffhanger. Now, because we got a post-credit scene. Mm-hmm. One additional piece of feedback came from Mark Kirkman, who said, I enjoyed the episode. I wish it were an hour, as what Kevin Feige said. I'm glad my prediction was true about Agnes being Agatha Harkness. Glad to see Monica become Photon or Spectrum. Who knows? The end credits scene was a bit short, but leads me to believe that Mephisto is involved somehow still. Ha 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 ha. I'm just adding for dramatic effect. Yeah, Mephisto, maybe this could be the one, all along. They misdirected us with Agatha. Now it could be misdirecting us with Mephisto, but we'll see. Yeah. We will see, Mark. We will see.
Absolutely. And I know this is what we've kind of been alluding to throughout our podcast, that there have been mentions that the final couple of episodes will be more than half an hour long or more than 40 minutes long. I think even Kevin Smith was taken in by this. Apparently himself and Mark Bernardin were talking about the final 3 episodes being like 3 hours of content, but this effectively came from a discussion that happened back in January. The discussion was that episodes or the entire shows on Marvel Disney are aiming for between 5 and 6 hours long. Some shows will be 10 half-hour episodes or 9 just over half an hour episodes, and some shows will be hour-long 6-episode shows like Falcon the Winter Soldier. And then someone's done some really weird math and thought, hang on a second, we've got more time than they said back in January, so that means that the last 3 episodes are 3 hours long. And then created a meme attributing it to a quote from Kevin Feige, and it just took over everywhere. Admittedly, as we talked about during the week on chat, Chris, admittedly, Marvel can do whatever the hell they want to, but there is no confirmation from anybody as to how long the last 2 episodes are going to be. That's fundamentally nobody has confirmed how long each individual episode will be. But we could have a 4-hour episode next week and a 5-minute closer in the last episode. They could do that.
God,
there's no reason why they can't do it. They're not tied into advertising. They're not tied into anything other than what they want to do, but nobody has confirmed how long the last 2 episodes are.
It would just be so Marvel. It would be just like, we can do what we want.
Exactly.
Ka-chunk.
Captain Marvel 2 is actually episode 8 of WandaVision, and it starts next week. It's 2 hours long.
Imagine they stealth dropped a Marvel film. Do you know what? Imagine they stealth dropped Black Widow in the week between WandaVision and Falcon.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool if the last episode hit, we talk about their end credits thing. Why not have that last episode is the pre-movie opener like you get in James Bond, where you have a scene that leads in directly to Multiverse of Madness. So it's a pre-credit.
Oh, that would kill you, John. That's like
No, it wouldn't.
That movie's
it
like
wouldn't.
a year and a half
Doesn't
away.
Matter.
That would kill you if they did
It
that.
would sustain me like a, like a mango fruit or something for that period.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your feedback, Mark. Matthew Randall says, if Monica's powers came from going through the hex a whole bunch, which I'm hoping they didn't, they'd be getting a lot of mileage out of that Mind Stone, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, four characters that have been created from connections to the Mind Stone. We have Vision, Wanda, Pietro, of course, and now Monica as well. There's a connection there, at least. Now, we don't know who created the hex originally for definite. We know that Wanda powered it up when she went back inside last time, and now the combination of those powers. Well, I really like that thought. That's really cool, Matthew. Sandy Resendez says, I was disappointed at first at what Darcy became in the hex because she really didn't seem that much different. But then I remembered what Pietro said last week to Wanda about keeping families together, personalities mostly similar, etc. Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
And Sandy says, I knew Agnes was faking last week, and I'm convinced now that Mephisto is going to be the big bad here and will be for the new Doctor Strange movie.
Interesting, Sandy. Yes. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, I'm still, dare I say it, on the knife edge about Mephisto. We're certainly not gonna, see it anytime soon if that happens. But we're saying that a lot. I'd love it if he was, but I just wonder. I've been dashed by my own imagination, so far, so I'm trying to hold back. Thanks so much again, Sandy. Salim says, okay, so it was Agatha all along. Catchy tune. Monica's engineer was a vehicle? I thought she addressed the woman who was leading that group as Colonel. Is she an engineer as well? I'm foggy on this one. Monica has powers, so they finally have someone other than Vision who can go toe-to-toe with the Wands. I'm most intrigued now by Quicksilver, or whoever he is. Wanda told the boys that he's not their uncle, so maybe she senses that something's up with him. My wife and I both had a lot of laugh out loud moments in the sitcom bits here. I like that it's in widescreen now, that we're in the 2000s. It looks like the hex is going to collapse. Maybe Agatha will help Wanda stabilize it. Yeah, thanks so much, Salim. I think she was addressed as Major, and I think she can still be an engineer, kind of the Swords Engineer Corps here. And I guess being in space, you need quite a lot of those for sure. Yeah, Quicksilver, who is he? Is it Ralph? Is it just someone else, the brother of Agatha's son, or just the reanimated sort of matter of someone to look like Quicksilver. That's
Ralph and the rabbit mashed up.
But I think the fact that it was in that end credit, I'm glad he's still there, because I was wondering where he was in this episode. It's nice to have that little touch point for sure. And
that scene that you're talking about there as well. That scene where Vision is waking up and the screen turns to widescreen is so cool on a big TV.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. It really has that kind of real cinematic quality, because they have it, the slow wake up of Vision and the slow reveal into widescreen. Very, very cool.
And interesting point, I didn't really catch about the hex becoming unstable, and whether it was going to collapse. Yeah. I'm wondering whether if it collapses, then all the magic users' alarms start going off, or whether it collapses because Wanda sort of depowers or combats Agatha. I mean, it'll be interesting to see for sure. Thanks so much, Salim.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you so much, Salim. We also have feedback from Doug Green, who said, maybe it was just because they wanted to drip feed us, but with the way they really used the period stylings, I get the feeling that I think the reason we didn't get a mid to post-credits scene until now was because it wasn't a thing until the early 2000s. Yeah, Doug, that's a really, really good kind of idea. I think thought something similar, because if you think about it, Iron Man, first post-credit scene, 2008, it's around the right time. So it's definitely a definitely a good catch.
Excellent. Thanks, Doug. Jeff Giles says we're now in the 2010s with Modern Family nod and an office-style intro. Agnes is Agatha Harkness. The engineer is no one in particular. Monica is now superpowered. How is this episode over so soon? How are there just 2 more episodes to go? Snooper's gonna snoop. Yep. Thanks, Jeff. I like that. He's able to cut the episode down to much shorter than we can. Finally, Brandy has a theory about why Evan Peters in the show. She says, why Evan Peters? Well, I think Agatha planned to trick Wanda into believing she, Wanda, had brought Pietro back. But when Wanda wouldn't even try to bring Sparky back to life, Agnes had to come up with a different plan. Cue Peters as the brother you called out to, but couldn't bear to actually see. Wanda would reject the idea of having brought Pietro back, especially after the talk with the twins, but by having a different face, it helped to gaslight Wanda into questioning herself more than questioning who else could be behind this. And the reason Agnes needed Pietro was to anchor Wanda there. That had been Vision's job before, but he was asking too many questions and making Wanda face too many facts, which is why Agnes tried to get rid of him by driving a wedge between Wanda and Vision. But she needs them both, and maybe the whole town, to think this is all Wanda's doing. That's a really interesting theory, Brandy. I like that.
Yeah, that's really good, actually. Yeah. And I think, I think you see that with the magic show where she's messing it all up, and obviously the tension there between Vision and Wanda. And yeah, I really kind of like that theory because, yeah, it is why the choice of Evan Peters. Yeah. And I think
it's stunt casting for us as the audience. It's just a different face for Wanda, but she believes it's her brother. Really like that.
Yeah. That's a really good one.
Really, really good theories, Brandy. Thanks so much to everybody that sent us in feedback on Facebook. As I mentioned before, pop on over to Facebook at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Great chats going on over there. Let's get on to some voicemails. Lots of voicemails this week as well. People are loving this series and we're loving hearing your thoughts about the show. Our first piece of feedback comes into our wonderful listener, Will B.
Hello, mates. This is Will B from the U.S. and I just wanted to call in and talk about episode 7. I've been watching WandaVision all season with my 5-year-old, and she listens to the podcast along with me. So, a couple things I'm very excited about from this episode. One, finding out that Agnes is Agatha Harkness. I'm not very familiar with her character from the comic books, but she seems pretty evil, so I'm excited to see where they go with that. I thought the comedy bits between Vision and Darcy were pretty awesome. Lots of fun there. Also, Monica gaining her powers. I understand she is a character that's called Photon, so I'd be interested in hear what you guys have to say about that, what her powers are, and what that might mean for the future of the show. Also, I've been reading online that the book that was in the basement, the spell book, might be the Darkhold everyone knows from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a pretty evil book that can open a portal to hell and do some other pretty nasty things. So I'm interested in seeing where they go with that and how it ties the show to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse. So I always enjoy the podcast. Love the content. Keep doing what you do. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Will. And Mini Will, welcome. And so glad to have you listening to our show. Your daddy didn't tell us your name, so we'll just call you Mini Will for now.
That's so cool. Yeah, thanks so much, Will. It's really cool that you have your 5-year-olds listening into the podcast. This is why we don't curse in the podcast, Chris.
Yes, that's true. Although we will at one point end up doing a TV Podcast Industries After Dark because I swear like a sailor most days. In terms of your overall, I hope I answered some of the questions regarding the Darkhold. In terms of Agatha, you don't have much. At the end of the season, I can do a quick 30-second wrap up of who she is and what she is and like how she white and how they've changed her character. But essentially, if you're interested, she has ties to Wanda, she has ties to Vision, and she has ties to the Fantastic Four. Essentially, but she has always just been a supporting character.
A supporting character, yes, exactly.
Yeah, thanks so much, Will B, for the voicemail.
We also have some feedback from the one and only Dave. So, Dave, what do you have to say?
Hey there, guys. This is Dave from the Comics in Motion podcast. Have to say, I'm absolutely loving this series and always look forward to hearing what you guys always think of it and what you spotted and things that I might have missed. I'm sure one of the points that you'll be touching on is the Agatha Harkness reveal, and I did enjoy the little Monsters theme after they tried to throw us off the scent last week. But following on from that creepy basement scene, I found it a little bit jarring after they built up that tension really well. But I'm interested in what you guys think of that end credit scene and who Pietro might be this week. Now, this is speculation, but it could be a spoiler, so I'll leave it up to you if you prefer to cut this bit out. Now, like a lot of people, I was looking everywhere for signs of Mephisto after obviously knowing what he does in the comics. But I think this week, my money's on Nightmare. We know that Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson had mentioned about wanting to see Nightmare in a sequel a few years ago. And in that mid-credits scene, Evan Peters' characters were wearing predominantly a green-themed outfit, which we hadn't seen him in before. And with everything else being so well thought out and very deliberate, I don't think that's a coincidence. One thing that doesn't really make sense is the fact that Agatha is more of an ally to Wanda in the comics, and so they could just be completely changing that. Or a bit of a Hail Mary bit of speculation is that perhaps she's under the influence as well, perhaps like a dream within a dream kind of thing, and maybe that might be a final twist in the season finale. But anyway, loving what you do. Keep up the great work, guys. Bye now.
Dave Harricks, thanks so much for sending in that voicemail to us. Really good to hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for the feedback. Yeah, a nice bit of speculation there for sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, the Nightmare connection is just because of what's been said previously. I didn't spot the kind of green tone to Evan Peters' clothes there, or Quicksilver's. So, yeah, I need to just look at that again. But yeah, Nightmare is a man in green, for sure. So really, that's an interesting one.
Because wasn't the whole story from Scott Derrickson that he wanted to do Nightmare in Doctor Strange 1? Was told that he couldn't, he needed to introduce the character and then he'd be able to do it in Doctor Strange 2. And now, unfortunately, he's moved on for the project and Sam Raimi's on board doing Doctor Strange 2.
There was a lot of that. And yeah, I mean, dreams within dreams, it really allows you to play around with sort of the more straight aspects maybe of this show, that actually it becomes a bit more layered as we move towards episode 8 and 9. But certainly yeah, I'm kind of there on the Nightmare side, that he is a possibility for sure. And yeah, I mean, Mephisto maybe, because again, in the world of comics, Mephisto and Nightmare are certainly brothers in arms is not the right word, but it's kind of,
sometimes interchangeable.
They will collaborate occasionally on diabolical plans. So it's still always open, but I think, I'm liking the speculation.
We have some more voicemail feedback. Yeah, boys, it's everything's coming up voices. This time we have the one and only Greg Schwamm.
Hello, and thank you for hosting TV Podcast Industry's coverage of WandaVision. This is absolutely insane. Hi, this is Greg, and I just want to talk about the breadth of characters that we've gotten so far from this relatively short series. Scarlet Witch, Vision, Quicksilver, Speed, Wiccan, Dr. Darcy, Captain Photon, Jimmy Woo. And now we understand that the big bad is in fact Agatha Harkness, whom, from my fuzzy memories of the comics, looks a bit like Maggie Smith with a bun, crossed with Aunt May from the Spider-Man comics. Catherine Hahn's performance has been absolutely over-the-top bonkers, and then she killed Sparky. Crazy. I absolutely love her. And she's been a lot of fun to watch. She does have this kind of Hansel and Gretel vibe going on, but that may just be the fact that I now know that she's a witch, so maybe I was expecting it. I'm really kind of looking forward to what her end game is, and hopefully we'll find out next week. Elizabeth Olsen was absolutely channeling Julie Bowen this episode, and as a fan of Modern Family, I thought it was a lot of fun. And I swear to God, as soon as the screen flashed to black after the post-credit scene, a miniature Christmas tree fell on a mantle, which probably shouldn't be up at this point, but whatever, immediately fell down and crashed onto the floor. Really spooky. All right, look forward to the podcast. Thanks.
I love it, Greg. Look, if you want to leave up your Christmas tree till March, you are absolutely entitled to. Everybody can do that. You're totally entitled to.
Absolutely. There's a few houses around here that have still got the Christmas lights out the front. So, they're trying to maintain that festive spirit.
Oh, absolutely. If you're staying indoors and every day is exactly the same, you might as well have every day being Christmas, right? Totally. Really like those thoughts there, Greg, especially just listing out the number of characters that from the comic books that we've had in these 7 episodes of a TV show. That's amazing to think how many characters have been introduced here that we haven't really seen before. That's really cool.
Yes. Thank you so much, Greg. And yeah, like as you said, and as Derek said, just when you actually list them, you're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we have a lot of here, and the way they pulled it together. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, thanks so much, Greg. And finally, we have our last bit of voicemail from Steve Brown.
Hello, TV Podcast Industries. This is Steve, and we have our first post-credits scene for WandaVision, Breaking the Fourth Wall. Another outstanding episode, and I only watched it once. I'm going to have to watch it again before I can send some more thoughts in. But man, super good. I started to think before the post-credits scene, I was like, oh, they listed Evan Peters, but we only saw his back. And then, of course, there he goes. But yeah, I loved the Modern Family take on it, and I'm sure people are going to be talking about that. And just the reveal there at the end, Agatha all along. I'm not sure exactly what that means. How much of it was she controlling? Was she doing everything? Does Wanda have any kind of control at all? I don't know. Seeing the glitching at the beginning, where it was popping between different time periods was interesting. The kids with the saying something was wrong with our game, and then the controller changes to a joystick and then to Uno cards, like going back in time almost, and then back to, the controllers that they had. So, I can't wait to watch it again. I can't wait to hear you guys talk about it, and, can't wait to see the next one. All right. Talk to you later.
Excellent stuff, Steve. Yeah, we didn't talk about one bit of the glitching that I can't believe we didn't talk about. I loved the moment when Wanda goes to the fridge to get her almond milk. And it starts glitching backwards in time through full fat milk and through half fat milk and the blue style, the red style into a bottle.
It was fortified milk with vitamin D, and then it was just plain old full fat, black and white milk.
Really fun touch to go all the way back from almond milk to full fat milk.
Well, yeah, exactly.
just showing the difference in the family home. Really, really good stuff. I love that Steve records this when he's watching the end of the episode. What I was really hoping for, though, was that he was going to click his recorder immediately after the episode ended. We'd get a live reaction to the post-credit scene. I was really hoping for that. But he seems that he watched the post-credit before recording. Excellent.
Great to get the epic music soundtrack to your feedback, Steve. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. For me, it's just that you have a musical accompaniment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hopefully no strikes against us for copyright. That's it for all of the feedback and all of our thoughts for the episode. Thanks so much once again for joining us for another epic episode. Only 2 more of these to go. What's going to happen when we get into Falcon and Winter Soldier, which have hour-long episodes? Are we going to be recording for 3 or 4 hours on those episodes? No, absolutely not. But we do want to hear your thoughts about all of the episodes of this show. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Pop on over to the Facebook group, as I mentioned before. Or you can also find us over on Twitter @tvpodindustries. We will be back with episode 8 discussion of WandaVision, which comes out on the 27th of February.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 episodes left. We are in the final stretch. If you believe my hype, then potentially this is going to be the big one, followed up by a post-credit episode, if you will.
2 hours and 5 minutes. I'd love it. I think it'd be hilarious.
And no, it would just be an hour, and the next episode 9, is the 5-minute one.
Maybe. You never know.
I cannot wait. It'll be great to see this. But again, thanks so much for joining us, fellow defenders. It's always a pleasure having our chit chat with you on all things WandaVision. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending. Bye.